Hi, everybody.
Are you talking to me? You said everybody.
Yeah, like all one of you. Hi, everybody. This is the
Hi.
John
Oh,
T. Mantis, a tabletop role-playing games sometimes podcast. You're listening to a bonus episode, and I'm Jesse.
yes, this is one of our regular Star Wars bonus episodes.
Where we answer creative questions that are usually about RPGs, but today we just wanted to talk about something because it's a bonus episode. So, Maddie, what'd you think of Skeleton Crew?
What did I think about it? All right. Let's get a few things out of the way first before it gets messy.
Okay.
Okay? Skeleton Crew for me. 9 out of 10. One of my favorite all-time favorite things in Star Wars. And I am so elated to finally have something that we can show to the next generation that's actually made for them in a way that they don't have to have any prior knowledge whatsoever about anything in Star Wars. Like I get the argument that the prequels are made for kids. I just don't agree with it because it starts with tense trade negotiation bullshit,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
If you'd like to know more, if they haven't been canceled or something, Red Letter Media has an
Yes.
intense thesis on
Yes.
why the prequels are not for kids,
Right.
done through a weird character thing that might be kind of edgelordy these days, but oh, it's very funny and well made.
Yes. And I'm a huge fan. The big conflict for me as a Star Wars fan is that my favorite era of Star Wars is the prequel era, but it's not because of the prequel movies per se, because I think those movies are terrible.
Is it the Dark Horse comic books by
It's
Ostrander and others?
Yes, it's the Dark Horse comic books, which did, in my opinion, did a lot of the heavy lifting for the prequel era in between the movies to kind of like help make sense of whatever it was we were given for those movies. But then also the Clone Wars show, and
Yeah.
then its subsequent followers like the Bad Batch and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely my favorite era of Star Wars. It's Star Wars at its goofiness. It's Star Wars with tons of Jedi in it and has outside of the actual movies of the prequel era has nuance to it, and it casts the Jedi in different lights. It poses problems if you read those Dark Horse comics. I'm not sure if they're considered canon, but the Dark Horse comics do show a lot of the nuance of the Jedi Order and like why it's problematic, why it's a force for good, but also like the problems it causes, across the galaxy.
Yeah.
But the problem with all of that is it requires a prior knowledge of Star Wars to truly enjoy it. And I've got a good friend and her husband, huge Star Wars fans. They just had a baby, and she's like, my husband really wants our son to be into Star Wars. But she's like, bro, I don't think Star Wars is for kids. And I would have agreed with her up until Skeleton Crew,
Mm.
because Skeleton Crew is for kids
Yes.
and it's really good.
I'm waiting for this other shoe to drop. But you said there's got to be some ugliness. And I'm like, so far, I'm just writing right along with you. Like, there is stuff. I'm going to say I don't think it's just for kids.
I agree.
Like, I do not think it is a simplified or immature story,
I agree.
although I consume a lot more kids' media than you do right now. And I would say there is definitely a trend to not have simplified, immature stories in kids' media. Like things have a lot of feels and are complicated and emotional and messy, and a lot of kids media. The new She-Ra cartoon is an example of that.
Right.
Like they're
Right.
like, these are humans who enjoy stories with complicated characters, just maybe characters that are kids they can empathize with. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah. I don't think it's infantilizing
Mm-hmm.
in any way, shape, or form. But I also think that there are some really cool like reference that they're doing, like the kids on bikes,
Mm-hmm.
things that we grew up with, like
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't need to be in there for kids today. They don't get the reference, but I really appreciated it being in there. I don't know that Treasure Island is a story that kids really hear. Um, and just the references to pirate culture, like the droid being Smee,
Mm-hmm.
like I was just like, oh, I love that. And the kids like didn't catch it.
Yeah, why would
And
they?
like
Yeah.
over this Christmas, I I love my kids. I am honored that I get to be a father, but a lot of times it's been hard work.
Mm-hmm.
And this Christmas, we've gotten to the age finally where, like, Christmas morning, my daughter's reading a graphic novel on the couch while I play Battleship with my son. We got a Switch. We have a regular Grand Prix night together as a family. We've got a family D&D campaign going of
Uh-huh.
Spelljammer. And for Skeleton Crew, every Thursday, because Tuesday's dance and Wednesday I'm out for a game, every Thursday we would all sit down together on a couch, like the two couches in our living room. We'd each get one kid. We'd snuggle up under a blanket. We'd watch Skeleton Crew. Halfway through, we'd pause it and switch which parent the kid was snuggling
Uh-huh.
with, and then
Uh-huh.
finish the episode. And we did that for the whole series. And my children were enthralled, and it was magical.
Right.
And I was still enjoying the story.
Yes. Yes. I love everything that you said. I do want to preface before we go deep, full spoilers for Skeleton Crew. By the time we're recording this, all episodes are out. By the time that the audience will hear this, there's been more than enough time for you to have checked it out. But just in case that hasn't happened, we are going to spoil everything we can about this show, because that's how you talk about something you love, is by going into it in a deep way that reveals the things that happen. Full spoilers. If you haven't checked out by now, all right, here we go. Okay. Uh, my favorite thing, and there are so many things that are my favorite things in this show. My favorite thing is when Jude Law's character, we'll say Jod, that's one of his names. You can actively watch him resist the dark side, going over to the dark side. And it is in when he begins to get upset and then he starts to calm himself down, and he never like succumbs to the dark side. Like he gets so upset and then it's just brings it down and recenters himself. And like this character has become one of my favorite characters in Star Wars
He's so
because of it.
complex, and
Yes.
like, and I think like Jude Law, I've been a fan of Jude Law as an actor for a while. Like I've
Okay.
never actually seen Jude Law in anything where I'm like, I don't like this. But
Yes.
like Jude Law is a fantastic actor, but I think it's also a combination of the writing and director, because he is the most interesting and
Mm-hmm.
complex one of the most interesting and complex characters I've seen in Star Wars.
Right. Right. I completely agree. They did such a great thing with his character, and if you're familiar with similar material that this story is kind of aping, or whatever the term, honoring or whatever, copying, um you you go through this show wondering like, okay, well he's gonna do the right thing at the end, you know, and he doesn't.
No, I thought he was the Long John Silver
Yeah,
analog because it's doing Treasure Island. Right.
basically yes, yeah.
Yeah.
But if
And
you're
I'm
not
like, he's not
familiar
going to
with,
do the right thing, but he's going to be conflicted.
right, and if you're familiar with Treasure Island, you know that. But if you're not, then you have this idea of this character and you're like, oh, he's probably going to do the right thing at the end. That's Disney. That's Star Wars. That's where it's going to separate from Treasure Island, right? He doesn't. He's the villain of the story,
Yeah.
but he doesn't harm the children. Like, I mean, I guess you could say like harming them and scaring the crap out of them and threatening to kill their
To
parents.
chop their parents to bits.
But he doesn't actually physically harm them, you know?
Like seeing, okay, when the ship goes down, seeing the heartbreak and like anger on his face, like he is legitimately upset.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
like I think he was definitely willing to threaten and scare the kids. I don't think he ever was going to hurt them.
right, exactly. Yes. And he didn't like kill their parents.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't do it.
The cracking of the fingers as he's reaching towards sorry, this is like the final episode, like the climactic scene we're talking about where all these threads of this character come together.
Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely loved the show. I love the character. I can't wait to see more of these characters. I can't wait to see Jod in other stuff. You know, I hope that he continues to walk that line because you know that I'm a huge fan of the comic book version of Quinlan Voss.
Yeah.
Not so much the
Not
version
Surfer
that's
Dude,
in the
Clone Wars Quinlan Voss.
yeah, not the Clone Wars Surfer Dude version, but like the comic book Quinlan Voss is a character that walks the line between light and good. I'm sorry, light and dark, evil and good. And we really haven't had much of that in the live action Star Wars presented to us in the past. And I think it's a deep mine that they can prospect for characters. You know, especially since Ahsoka is moving away from the traditional ways that we understand the Force and the Jedi and all of those tropes that we've come to expect in Star Wars. So I'm excited to see this character persist that walks that line.
Is there going to be more Skeleton Crew stuff?
I would be shocked if there isn't, because I think it's had a generally a very good it's been received very well. I mean, within
I haven't heard
context.
any like internet troll hate.
Well, I
it.
have.
Oh, okay.
I have. But before we get into that, let's talk about the other characters, okay? What like I love all the other characters. When it comes to the kids, like I like how Fern is like the creepy kid in the beginning. Do you know what I mean? Like she's just kind of slinking around and is like, "Hey, what's going on?"
Yeah.
You know, and we usually see this in like a male kid, a young boy who's kind of a bully or kind of rude or kind of a jerk. And it's like it's weird and fun to see it portrayed in a female character and portrayed well. You know, where you're like she's the scoundrel like character and the actor is like nailing it. You know, I was really impressed by I'm forgetting the name of the other actors, but I was really impressed by all of them. You know, one of the problems with child actors is because they are not fully developed human beings, it is difficult for them to portray the emotion and life experience that's required in order to act, you know, and play pretend for an audience.
Well, I mean, with good writing and good direction,
you can alleviate that problem. Yeah.
Let's try rolling. That's a good move.
Which one of the kids was your favorite? Fern was my favorite character of the kids.
That's so hard to pick. Like I'm blanking on their names too. So I'm like cheaply over here, like
Neil,
trying to like get the names for the discussion.
When
like, I assured you I watched the show. I just I'm gonna get names wrong. Okay. Oh yeah, Neil. It was Neil.
What what's the name of the alien?
Ortolan?
Ortolan. Yeah.
Yes. I don't think he's actually an Ortolan.
You don't think he's actually an Ortolan? Then what
No,
is he?
like the showrunners have been saying, like he's not the same thing as Max Rebo. Like his family is. They're like, I don't know. Maybe
They're
he is an
different.
Ortolan, and oh
Well,
yeah,
then
he's an Ortolan,
okay,
and Max Rebo is not Ortolan.
gotcha. Okay, is that thing from Captain EO an Ortolan?
Is that in the Star Wars continuity?
Did you not catch that reference? There's a Captain EO reference in Skeleton Crew. Like,
No.
like fucking Captain EO is fucking canon now, dude.
When was that?
When they're on that pirate space station,
Yeah.
there's the floating, fluttering, like monkeying kind of cute creatures. They're like red. One of them has red fur and like a
And they're in a
cute face,
cage?
and they're in a cage, and they all get
Yeah.
out when they crash into them. There's
Uh-huh.
a moment where the kids look at them and feel sorry for them. The red one in particular is in Captain EO,
Oh wow.
like floating around with them. He's like a member of their crew. So like there's tons of like little references like that.
Yeah,
Like
no, I am only loosely aware that Captain EO exists. So
if you haven't seen Captain EO, audience, don't bother.
yeah. Don't
It
you
is
have to go to a ride at Disney World
you
like
can
20 years ago to see Captain EO?
which I did as a kid.
Okay.
When I went to Disney, my dad was like, "Hey, there's a ride here that has three things you love in it." And I was like, "I'm listening." And he's
How'd
like,
those things age? Pretty well, I'm gonna guess.
he's like, "It's got Star Wars." I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "It's got Muppets." I'm like, "Okay." It's got Michael Jackson. I'm like, "Get out of here." Because you know,
Two out of three ain't bad.
as a kid, like a lot of
Yeah.
kids in the 80s, I loved Michael Jackson.
Okay, diversion. Just real quick, diversion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I went to a kid's birthday party at Celebration. No, Main Event. It was at Main Event. And we're in the rows where all the birthday parties are. They got all these tables lined up, no walls between them. Just it's like the birthday party pin. It's this girl having a party next to us, 8-year-old girl. And the
Mm-hmm.
theme of her party is Michael Jackson. She is dressed as Michael Jackson in like
Yeah.
a sequin black thing with the glove and like the glasses. And there's pictures of Michael Jackson like all over the table. And I'm just like, do they not know? Okay. I don't
You
think
think
I'm
the
going to
parents
tell
were
them.
conflicted?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. So anyway, sorry. Yeah, digression there.
No worries. No worries.
No, I didn't catch the Captain EO reference. I did like the little hollow table kid show
Mm-hmm.
they're watching. That's from the Christmas special.
Oh, that I missed.
Yeah, the little like dance procession the kids were watching like on the
Mm-hmm.
hollow table is from the Star Wars holiday special.
That's hilarious. Did
Yeah.
you catch the reference to the Ewok adventure movies?
Oh no.
So, and I thought this was like so well done, but like when they get back to Atten, one of KB's moms looks at her wrist and says, "KB is alive." And she has like the life bracelets that the characters have in the Ewok adventure movies that like sync with each other and have a light for each family member. And that's how you can tell that they're close and that they're alive, is because the lights blink on it.
Oh wow.
And they barely even show it. They just have her look at her wrist and you can kind of see it. And I was like, holy shit, that's awesome. Like, what a great way to like start bringing these elements of the story together through something that's from like made for TV Ewok movies.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. I let me ask you this. I really loved the attention to making things way more practical than we're used to in modern science fiction or fantasy. And I think that's been a trend. You know, I think that's a reaction to the prequels per se of going too far in the digital direction. And I think having puppetry and practical effects really does help this show a lot. What do you think?
No, I definitely like I like that it's practical. I thought the first mate, like cool ass. I forget what that species is called. Um, I just thought he was cool. I loved Urkel. Urkel was
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
Carrie pointed that out. She's like, "That's Urkel." I'm like, "What?"
I was kind of disappointed. I thought he was going to be more of a bigger character. I was like, you hired Steve Urkel. Why aren't you using him? Yeah, they barely used him, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, yeah, I absolutely. Did
The
you?
giant alien on the sauna planet.
Yes.
I love that. I loved everything about that.
Yep. Yep. What did you think of? Did you ever question whether Jude Law's character was an actual Force user?
Yeah, I was thinking like, have we ever seen him without gloves on? Like maybe
Hmm.
it's all just been metal things. Like maybe it's just magnets and it's part of the con he's playing. But then he like it's iffy, it's some cyber thing, it's a trick until he had the speech when he was like trying to cheer up or toughen up Wim, and he's
Hmm.
just like attachment. I'm like, oh, the dude has talked to a Jedi at least.
Hmm.
And then by the time he gives the speech about like what the Jedi that found him, I'm just like, that's pretty much what I figured
Right.
had happened.
Yeah.
Um, but it's really interesting that he had not, in all that time, in all the situations he's been in, with a still connection to the Force, as you said, fallen to the dark side.
Yes.
Because it seems like that'd be really easy.
Yes. Yeah. And I just want to know more about the character, and I want more insight into that. Is it a struggle? Like, what has his life been like up to this point? And what more does he have to share in future stories?
So before we get into internet trolls and why they're wrong, um, here's the thing that I found heartbreaking
Okay.
about this show, right? And I guess this is maybe just my moment in politics of where we are in the real world and
Okay.
whatnot, and what happened with like the sequel movies. But I'm just like all the message of we have to open up to the world. There's good people. There's out there. There's hope. Like Wim sees the X-wings fly, and you can just tell he's going to go off and join the Republic Navy just in time to fight the First Order. And I'm like, just in time for like the space fascists to show back up and blow up like seven populated worlds and like
Hmm.
destroy the Republic and all it represents. Like, and mm, like,
Right.
I wish they were right, but no, they never should have turned off the machine. Like, they never should have turned off the barrier.
Yeah. Yeah. Or does he, do you think he becomes a Force user himself?
I don't know.
Interesting.
I didn't see anything that made me think that he had a connection to the Force. I just think he liked the stories.
Hmm. I mean, that would be a really cool kind of twist of the character, is that he's not a Force user. You know what I mean? But he could
Mhm.
easily fall into like the new Luke Skywalker kind of model, like somebody who's always looked to the something more, never really fit into his environment, feels a greater calling, is inspired by stories of Jedi, you know, and starts flying X-wings.
Yeah, just in time
Yeah. I
to
mean, he
fight
could go to Luke's fucking failed Jedi school and get
and
wiped
get
out.
killed by Kylo Ren.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, I can see your point. Um, okay,
because
so
I maybe it's like, and it's a thing too that like with the whole return of the First Order and having to have it be the
so
Skywalker
depressing.
saga, bigger problem in Star Wars than what we're talking about here. But it's just like it's just so they don't play it as so dark, but it's so dark. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's like it was all for nothing. Like
Yeah, it's so
they
soul
got 20
crushing.
years and they let their judgment go, they let things lapse, and then bam, we're right back to that. And yeah, sure, they defeated Palpatine again, but like none of it felt earned. I don't know.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. Like it The Force Awakens has a huge asterisk next to it as far as I'm concerned. And The Last Jedi, I think, is the only good Star Wars movie in the sequel trilogy.
Well, what they did with the story of like, like the First Order coming back and everything, given in the frame line of that, how well The Last Jedi works.
Mm-hmm.
Eat it, the internet. The Last Jedi is amazing. And if you disagree, you're wrong. And I want you to find, like, in the words of the late, great David Lynch, get right with your heart or die.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the best directed Star Wars movie out of all of them, The Last Jedi. Um, and as much as I bag on the prequels, at least they were trying to do something different in those movies. Whereas with the sequels, with the exception of The Last Jedi, they're basically retreading on everything we already know and have seen over and over and over again. They're not really breaking new territory.
Speaking of doing things new in Star Wars, you know what happens when you finish watching an episode of Skeleton Crew? You know what show it tries to promote?
Yeah, Andor.
Yeah, so Lottie's like, can I watch Andor? So, and I've told my 8-year-old daughter, no, I don't think you're quite ready for Andor.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
You can wait for Andor.
you can wait for Andor. We'll just wait till there's more skeleton. We can get back to your Clone Wars, like in the chronological order watch you're doing. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
she had a minute where she was just like die hard watching Clone Wars, and then lately it's just been Lilo and Stitch the series, which is
As you do when you're a kid.
less likely to have like, episodes that are references to like Apocalypse Now on Umbara, but that's like,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
okay. Why are sad people on the internet mad?
Well, I can't tell you why they're mad. You'll have to ask them. That's their own personal life and whatever problems they're taking with them onto the internet. What I can say is that a lot of the complaints about the show, I actually agree with. You referenced that the bikes was a great tie-in for you.
Yeah.
For me, it was too much. It was too much like our world. It was too much like 80s nostalgia for me. I like the fact that the kids have hover bikes. That's not the problem. But I didn't like how 80s nostalgia human Earth it was.
But they're literally trapped from the rest of the galaxy in a stasis of this like lost time, which is a message to the Star Wars fans.
Yes.
Like us, of you can't stay here. It's gone.
Yeah, no, and that's all great. Wonderful, great job, great imagery, great subtext. It was a turn off for me. The look of the suburbs, the like 80s themes and mentality and vibe with it was a huge turn off for me. It didn't completely turn me off from the show. I kept going and I'm glad that I did. And my message to, fellow nerds on the internet who were so enraged by it that they couldn't bear to continue and then had to express that vomit onto the internet, I would say, well, you really missed out on a great show just because you couldn't get over like a set of things in the first episode that after the first episode really don't matter, beyond that point. Like I'm willing to watch a show or a movie and have things in it that I really don't like and then be able to move past them and just be like, it's fine. It's not for me. There's still a great show here. So like I agree with
They had
some
kids
of the
on
sentiment.
bikes, hover bikes that felt like an 80s thing homage, and so they're mad.
Yeah, getting mad, that's the part I don't understand. I can understand somebody being like, "Oh, I'm turned off by the suburban aesthetic and I don't like it." That's completely understandable. You don't like a thing, taste is subjective. The human race would be way more boring than it already, has the potential to be if everybody liked all of the same things equally, you know? So I will say that, like that is part of why it's not a 10 out of 10 for me. Is like that opening aesthetic was very off-putting to me and I didn't like it. My wife loved it. She was like, "This is perfect. This is a great," and she said some of the same things that you did, about the subtext and the meaning and like the importance of establishing such a drastic difference between their world and the rest of the universe.
And there's also little nods too that I really liked about like the dystopian, you are monitored nature of that
Hmm.
otherwise idyllic suburban thing, which is
Yeah.
very sort of like, I think reminds to a lot of the flaws of, the old Republic of
Hmm.
yeah, we'll totally do this to have a mint protected to make our money.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I want to know about the other nine worlds though.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, we did go to one of them, right?
yeah,
The French
War World.
Revolution planet.
Like, yeah.
And that was one of the other things that I didn't like. I didn't like that world, and I thought it was, until the very end, it felt like kind of a waste of time to be there. I think that a lot of that information could have been discovered on the ship. And that's the next problem I had. That this is how it gets messy for me, Jesse, is like they have this amazing ship that they can explore and get into and find parts of. And that's what I would have rather have had them do, is explore and get to know their ship instead of dropping off on French Revolution planet. And the information that they discovered on that planet, they could have easily have discovered on the ship itself. But it didn't take away from the overall enjoyment of it as a whole.
Or they couldn't have discovered it on the ship because they didn't discover it on the ship.
Any and all options. This is just my personal preferences. These are like nitpicks, you know what I mean? Like, the other thing I will say is that I wish this had been a movie instead
Yeah.
of a show.
Yeah.
And I think that that was a missed opportunity. I think if this was a movie and it had been condensed and like some of these other things that I think could have been removed, have been adjusted or removed, I think like this would have blown up huge in the theaters and people would be like, Star Wars is fucking back.
I think this definitely could have worked as a movie, but one of the things I'm really kind of enjoying about this, the post golden age of TV that
Mm-hmm.
we are now in, like I like the tonal shifts of like a short run series like this
Mm-hmm.
when you get a different director.
Right.
Like
Okay.
I like getting to see the tonal shift of little stories. It's like, like how Andor is like three stories. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's like three basic blocks to that show, and each
Right.
one has a very different tonal feel and arc. Like
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy that. Could
Yeah.
you condense, could that be Andor movie 1, 2, and 3? Yes. But
Well, Andor is something I wouldn't want as a movie. I was a fan of Andor from the very beginning. I know a lot of people were like, "Oh, it doesn't really get good until episode 3." I was into it from the get-go. And it's slow, methodical pacing, its attention to detail, it taking time and opportunity to like show you the important things in the way that it did. I was just eating it up. Like I love slow, well done, slow paced television. It really appeals to me. So like Andor is something I wouldn't want as a movie or a series of movies. Like that's
yeah.
definitely something I want as a show.
Well, I will say this too, because we brought it up on the show before when talking about Andor, the whole thing about making the Empire like, oh, it's not
Hmm.
just lighthearted fun. Darth Vader's not cool. These people are terrible fascists.
Yeah.
Just the reveal. There is no longer a Darth Vader poster on that wall. Now it's maps of like Planescape and shit.
Yeah. Yeah. So you resolved your conflict of having the cool
I did.
Star Wars propaganda fascist propaganda on your
Yeah.
wall.
Next, there's going to be a season of Doctor Who that makes Daleks really scary, and I'll have to take down the Dalek poster that's behind that bookshelf, but that's fine.
Well, at least it's hidden from view.
Well, okay. Yeah, I can see that. That one definitely could work as a movie. Any other thoughts? Because we're getting close to the end of our runtime here.
Not unless you want to lump the acolyte into this episode as well.
No, we can't start that now.
No,
I'll just say this. I enjoyed the Alkalite, but I thought it was kind of mid.
Yeah, I thought I would totally agree with that. I think it was an first season to what could have been an amazing show.
Yeah.
And I really think it sucks that it got canceled, because I think that the Acolyte, if given time to breathe, would have been like a really killer Star Wars show. It just had a really kind of who gives a shit kind of first season, in my opinion, and not enough Carrie Ann Moss. That is a complaint. I will die on that hill. When I found out she was going to be in the Acolyte, I was like, holy shit, this is perfect casting. Fucking Trinity as a Jedi. Like, this is going to be amazing. And then she's like, not in it enough.
Yeah.
And I felt so fucking disappointed by it. Anyway.
Yeah. No, I think, nobody wanted their heroes to be interrogated that way. So, I mean, I did, but okay.
I love that kind of shit. I just didn't like the way that they did it.
Yeah, fair.
And I also thought there was too many characters in that fucking show.
Yeah, what was it? Oh, what was it I saw? Oh yeah, I was at a Barnes and Noble. I go to Barnes and Noble once a week now, and I take my son to coding camp, and there's a Barnes and Noble near it, and he's there for 2 hours. So I just go to Barnes and Noble and get a coffee and read a book, whatever. But I wander sometimes through the back part, which is now the DVDs and CDs and albums and little pop culture toy. It's the saddest part of the store. And I'm walking around the Funko Pop display, and there's a Jord Funko Pop. And I'm like, well, I know why it's still here, but who bought one? Who has the Jord from the Alkalite Funko Pop?
Yeah. Missed opportunity with that one.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, this has been a bonus episode where we talked about pop culture stuff. If you liked this and want us to do more, why don't you drop us a line, jauntymandis@gmail.com. And or if you think, you want to fight me on the internet because I said get right with your heart or die,
Sure.
Cool. Tell us about it. We'd love to hear it.
Yeah, leave some comments, if you found this on YouTube or whatever the case may be, wherever you found this podcast. Let us know what your thoughts are about Skeleton Crew, Star Wars, even the Acolyte. Let us know what you think. And you can follow Jesse on social media. It's Jingoist Fett on Blue Sky.
Yeah, that works.
Okay, it's Jingoist Fett on Blue Sky. That's how you get in touch with the show. By contacting Jesse on Blue Sky.
Or emailing us at the Gmail for the show.
Mantis out.